Welcome to another episode of The Wireless Way. I'm your host, Chris Whitaker, and I am so grateful that you're checking out this episode. And I'm equally grateful to Dennis Osha, my guest today. And just a little bit about him. I met him recently, great guy. He's the founder and chairman of Mobile Mentor. We're going to unpack that. What does that mean? It's a global leader in modern endpoint management and security that helps organizations secure and empower their workforce across all types of devices. We're going to talk a little bit about that. They started a company in New Zealand many moons ago. And one of the things I thought was really interesting and it did catch my eye was, during his time at the helm, Mobile Mentor has earned multiple Microsoft Partner of the Year recognitions, and that's no small feat. Really excited to bring on Denis. Thanks for making time for us today. How are you doing?
Great. Thank you. I'm doing very well. And thank you for the opportunity to come on the podcast with you. I'm excited.
Oh, yes. I'm always excited, especially with new guests, people that I've just met. I was sharing with you pre-show. Selfishly, I'm just excited to have, I know how busy you must be. You're running a big company, a growing company, and in an area that I'm very interested in. The fact that you're even willing to give me this time to talk about what you do and how you do it. Yeah, I'm equally excited. So yes, thanks so much. So we got this brief kind of bio, and of course, check the show notes, folks. As always, I'll have some information and links to Mobile Mentor and how to get a hold of Dennis's team. What else can you tell us about your journey to get into where you are today?
Well, I'm looking at that phone on the shelf behind your head. And that's actually very close to where I started. Is that a Nokia or is it a Motorola?
It's an inflatable, probably a Nokia.
Okay. So my story started in Helsinki back in the 80s, working with Nokia. And my first mobile device was much bigger than the one you've got on the shelf there. It weighed about the same as a car battery. It was a colossal thing with cooling fans. And you could walk around and you held it in one hand and you had a curly cable and you'd pick up the phone and you could do remote calls, which was an amazing thing in the late 80s, early 90s. So I've had a long history in mobile technology and wireless technology. I spent 15 years at Nokia working for them in different countries around the world. And eventually I landed in New Zealand and I got an idea from my time with Nokia and I decided to leave them. They gave me their blessing. They actually gave me some startup capital and I set up this company, Mobile Mentor, around 2004. I've been running that business now for 21 years. And now I live in Nashville, Tennessee, and I do a ton of work with Microsoft and some other partners here in the States. I'm delighted to be working with you and your organization and the TSD community. So it's been a hell of a journey.
I bet. You've really seen going from that suitcase, mobile phone to what you're doing today. What a journey. So many different evolutions of the product. That's pretty fast. So were you, even as a child, were you interested in technology? At what point in your development to a young man, did you I love this technology stuff?
I never loved technology, to be honest. I was interested in engineering and how things worked. So I went off and I got an engineering degree. I got two of them. I got a master's as well. And I ended up working in a lab doing research and development for Nokia in Finland. And I got some patents and all that. And through that process, I actually learned that I was not a great engineer. And I was more of a people person, more of an extrovert. I found the best engineers in our environment were introverts.
Yeah.
And they were able to go deep and stay deep in something for a long, long time to solve a complex problem. I was much more interested in understanding what's the end user going to do with this product and who is the end user and what are the steps in between and how does this industry work? And I decided to get out of being the engineer with the technology in the lab and get out into the world. So when Nokia asked me to go to New Zealand to build the world's first cellular network, I said, sure, when's the flight? And I moved to New Zealand and then I went to different places. Now ran Nokia Switzerland for a few years and ended up back in New Zealand. I really followed the growth of the industry, but not so much as an engineer because I didn't think I was a good one, but rather as somebody who could understand technology and then help customers unlock the full potential of that technology in the business sense.
That's fantastic. I can relate to that because I generally self-describe myself as a tech enthusiast, but as I was listening to you talk, it's I'm really more interested in the outcome. I'm more interested hey, how is this going to make my life easier and better?
Yeah.
And years ago, I was taught by a mentor about the idea of being efficient and effective.
Yeah.
You can have one without the other. You really want both. And so I've always lived my life of, is this efficient and is this effective? And how can we use technology to make business outcomes more efficient and effective? And then when I talk to
Yeah.
business leaders of all levels, I mean, from SMB to enterprise, efficiency and effectiveness usually equals profitability.
Yeah.
First statement.
Yeah.
It's a good return.
Yeah.
And
And
yeah,
can I tell you a story that was quite pivotal in my
please,
development? Was
please.
I got my ass kicked by a customer around 2003. I was in Switzerland. I had found myself in a senior leadership role where I was heavily involved in sales, and we had just sold a 3G network to Orange, big telco in Europe. That was a big deal, hundreds of millions of euros. And we were trying to sell the next generation of technology. I was in a board meeting with the CEO of Orange, and he basically dressed me down. And he said, why would we buy the next generation of your technology when our customers are not using all the stuff we bought from you over the last few years? And I didn't have an answer. And I went back to my, group in Helsinki, and we tried to figure it out. And we really struggled because what was happening in the industry was customers were going out and buying their first smartphone, spending roughly $1,000 on this device. And guess what they were doing? They were making phone calls and sending text messages. That was it. There was no mobile internet. There was no app store. There was no social media. Getting music on your phone was a nightmare because it was only an app store in those days. Getting email working was a nightmare. It was pre-BlackBerry days. You couldn't sync your calendar. So the smartphones were actually not that smart. And the networks and the infrastructure was there. And these European carriers were spending, billions on spectrum and billions on cell sites and infrastructure and billions on all the technology. And people are sending text messages and making phone calls. And it was a very, very intense situation for a while. And we didn't have an answer. And I decided to leave Nokia and try and do something about it. And the idea was to simply sit down with one business person at a time and help them configure their first smartphone and get it working for one person at a time. Set up email, get calendar syncing, transfer their contacts from their old phone, get their music on it, change all their numbers to the plus format so they could go roaming, get all the basics so that you, Chris, if you had your first smartphone, I would be able to make you super productive with it as a business person. So you can spend a day out of the office, use this device, be productive, not have to go back to a day. That was the vision. And so we set up Mobile Mentor to do that. And we ultimately did that. We sat down with 1 million people in different countries around the world: Brazil, China, Australia, New Zealand, Switzerland, Japan, UK. And I think we moved the needle a little bit. We got a lot of people, right up to senior government level, government prime ministers and presidents and company leaders learning how to use smartphone technology to the way it was intended to be used. And that then cascaded down through their organizations. So it was, and getting my ass kicked in a boardroom was really, I guess, the genesis of the idea to go and do this.
We'll be right back.
I'm excited to introduce you to a brand new partner to the show. This wasn't a company calling saying, hey, I want to advertise on your show, although I would be nice too. But more importantly, this is me calling them saying, hey, I believe in what you stand for. I believe in your product. I want you to advertise on the wireless way. And here we are. So I'm so grateful to have this opportunity to share it with you. And of course, I'm talking about Pure Talk, America's wireless company, whose CEO is a veteran and served a couple tours in theater. A wireless company who believes in creating American jobs, which is why their customer service is right here in Georgia, where I'm located. So pretty stoked about that. And here's the deal. Pure Talk is on America's most dependable 5G network, same towers, the same networks as the big guys, but here's the catch, man. It's half the cost. You can get unlimited talk, unlimited text, and 5 gigs of data for just $25. Now, there's other options, but I can tell you the average person is using around 5 gigs because you're on Wi-Fi most of the day. But if you need more, you can get more at great rates. Now, the average family saves almost $1,000 a year on their cell phone, and not to mention the savings for businesses at Pure Talk Business. You can keep your phone, you can keep your number, or just choose the latest iPhones and Androids available. So just go to puretalk.com to save on your wireless bill. Make the switch today at puretalk.com and join America's wireless company, Pure Talk. Yeah, that will humble you. And wise that you took that as a learning moment instead of a woe is me moment. What was I got thinking? I mean, it was a great moment for you. Yeah, I love it. Even the name Mobile Mentor. I'm kind of sad. I didn't think of that. I was telling you earlier, that's a double entendre, wireless, meaning no scratch and no judgment, no waste, path, the journey, the adventure. But, the origin of this very show was really about how to make wireless and mobility and even Internet of Things to take the mystery out of it. We're using technologies every day. Even the least technical person of all of us, they know how to now use their smartphone. I mean,
it's simple now.
What percentage of people actually use their smartphones now for phone calls and text versus mostly internet apps like TikTok and social media and things like that?
Yeah, I'm not sure because we really don't do that work anymore. That all changed very quickly around 2008 when the iPhone came out and when the carriers launched and Wi-Fi became ubiquitous. The need for that initial service of helping someone set up their smartphone quickly evaporated around the time of the global financial crisis. So we pivoted and we became a managed service provider for enterprises and government departments who had a lot of mobile devices and they needed help to manage them, to secure them, to build out apps, to do asset management, cost management. So our business very quickly shifted from setting up a smartphone for 1 hour to then managing them 24 hours a day on a long-term basis so organizations could scale their mobile workforce. Then all our focus has been mobile workers.
Yeah, you were one of the first ones to do that, I would imagine, because if you think about the evolution of mobile devices in the corporate workspace, it doesn't seem that long ago, I don't know, call it 7 years maybe, where the only people in the organization that got a phone was the executives. You had to be a VP or some, director.
Or in sales.
Or sales, if you're a revenue generator possibly. But even my first sales job, I had a beeper. My first sales job, when I graduated from a beeper to a Nokia, I remember being at lunch, I got my first Nokia and it was 1999. And I go to lunch and because you didn't want to miss a call, I took my Nokia, set it in the middle of the table and I pulled the antenna because I want everyone to know I'm somebody.
Yeah, you're a big shot now.
You don't have a cell phone. I got a cell phone. And of course, you're going to miss that call.
Yeah.
It was all when my phone rang, it was always the money line. I just heard ching, ching, it was a great time. But another funny story, I just heard talking about when smartphones came on, I was talking to a friend of mine that worked at BlackBerry and they were at an all hands meeting that year. And someone raised a hand when they were doing the Q&A with the CEO, said, hey, how are we going to respond to the App Store? Apple has this App Store. What's our answer to that? And he says, that's just a fad. Business people only want to make phone calls and receive emails. We have that market cornered. Don't worry about that. She said you could hear a collective sigh across the room because everyone knew, oh my gosh, we're in trouble.
Oh my gosh.
That's the problem. Yeah. And of course they were right. What was the problem for them, which is a shame. Because you're right. Even, during the heyday of BlackBerry, man, they owned the market too.
They did for about 5 minutes. And so did Palm Pilot for about 5 minutes.
Correct.
Because they had the hardware and Nokia owned it for a while and BlackBerry owned it for a while. It's extraordinary to see how businesses have made fortunes and lost fortunes very rapidly over the years in this industry. It's really, really interesting.
So you talked about how you started out with the goal of just being that mobile mentor, helping people set up phones. What did you see in the market or the industry that prompted you to expand more into modern endpoint management and cloud security?
Well, first we contracted. And because the global financial crisis changed our business model and we had to shift, we had about 250 people at the start of the global financial crisis. And we had to do a rapid downsizing and retrenchment from our operations in China and Brazil in particular. So we retrenched, we pivoted, we became a managed service provider in the mobile space. From there, we started building mobile apps. So we built a software development practice, which we actually spun out as a separate company later. We got into mobile security. We partnered with AirWatch first. Still super proud of one of my guys who chose them as a partner back around 2010 or 11. And they turned out to be the global leader in mobile device management and mobile security. So we worked with them for a long time, and Citrix and Mobile Iron. And then we had a fascinating thing happen around 2015. We were doing really well, able to basically go into any enterprise and help them figure out what's the right platform to manage all their mobile devices and secure them with either AirWatch, Mobile Iron, or Citrix. And Microsoft came to us. And they said, the first thing they said to me, first conversation I ever had with Microsoft was, "You're really annoying us." They said, "We're seeing you on all our accounts, and we know you're just laughing at our product Intune because it was a very immature product back around 2015. And they said, we would like Mobile Mentor to consider becoming a Microsoft partner, helping us to take Intune to market. Stop laughing at us, but actually work with us and help us take this immature product to market and help us win some market share and become a partner." And I told my engineers about this conversation, and they all said, "No way, it's a dog. You don't want to touch Intune. It's totally immature. No, that would be a huge step backwards." And so I went and said yes to Microsoft because of the power of the partnership, not the technology, but the power of the partnership.
Right.
Because I had been given different advice from other people about when you form a constructive partnership with Microsoft, it can totally change your business. So we decided to set ourselves a North Star, and we said, what if we aim to become the best in the world at designing and deploying Microsoft Intune as a platform to manage all the devices? Because it won't just be smartphones. It'll be the tablets, and it'll be Windows, and ultimately it'll be MacBooks and virtual machines as well, and then servers. So we kind of had this vision. We thought, let's be audacious here. What if we aim to try and become the best in the world at one narrow thing and build a great partnership with Microsoft? And we had also been schooled at the time with a very sobering number that Microsoft had 400,000 partners. And none of them get any attention from Microsoft unless you find a way to stand out. So that really motivated us to figure out, how do we become the best in the world at one narrow thing so that they want to bring us into all their top accounts and position us and introduce us as their premium partner or their best partner for that one thing. So we spent 10 years working on that. And then we won Global Partner of the Year. It kind of played out as we hoped. They have brought us into the largest accounts in the world. One of our accounts now has over 1 million devices on Intune. We've got some hugely complex, interesting, and diverse accounts where we're now managing millions and millions of devices. And Microsoft has turned out to be an amazing strategic partner. I've been invited onto the advisory board for the Intune product line. Our engineers are part of Microsoft's elite engineering team, so they get insights into what's coming, and they have a voice at the table, to share customer concerns, customer frustrations, but also to help with prioritization of future products and features. So that's been a remarkable journey from being a competitor to Microsoft and clearly annoying them so much that they came to us and said, "Hey, let's be friends," to then winning their respect and now being able to work with them on these amazing accounts around the world. It's been one of the great highlights of my career, actually.
I can only imagine to have one of the largest, biggest software companies in the world say you're annoying. I mean, you had to feel pretty, that was a pretty pro. I mean, I imagine they even knew who you were, right? I mean, like, of all companies, when you annoy 800-pound gorilla like that, I mean, you must be doing something right. Yeah.
Yeah. And remember, we were in New Zealand, right? So we were in the second last rock before you step off the edge of the planet. So to notice us at that distance was pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. So all this decades plus experience with working with enterprises and mobile devices, there's really two questions I want to say. First of all, the problems you were solving 10, 15, 20 years ago, are they still existing today? No. They're gone, right?
No,
so it's new problems.
They've been solved. Yeah, they've been solved.
Yeah, new problems.
We have new problems.
Yeah. Give the listeners some idea. What's a common trend when your team has a new engagement or even an existing customer? Are you seeing trends of issues that companies are maybe not attention to? Some people just accept things for the way they are because they don't know there's a better way. Yeah. What are you guys seeing?
What we're seeing primarily is people not able to unlock the full potential of what they're spending with Microsoft. So Gartner predicted about 10 years ago that 95% of all organizations in the world will end up using Microsoft 365. And Gartner was spot on with that. Absolutely spot on. Because everyone has an account with Microsoft. Even Apple, even Amazon, even Google. Everyone uses Microsoft products to a certain extent. And most people end up using Microsoft 365 because it's the bundle. It's where the value lies. And we do a ton of assessments. And what we find is customers on average are only using 44% of what they've paid for. So the work we then end up doing is helping them do more with the licenses they've got. So we'll often say, stop buying new stuff, because if you're only using 44% of Microsoft, it probably means you're only using 44% of all the other overlapping things you might have as well. All the security tools and management tools and identity tools and AI tools. So the approach we tend to take is, let's help you extract as much value as possible from Microsoft as a strategic platform, starting with Microsoft 365 and very often starting with Intune, because we know we can use that to manage all your devices and you can probably retire 2 or 3 other products. So if you're using Jam for your Macs, if you're using AirWatch for your mobiles, if you're using SCCM for your Windows, let's collapse all those into Intune. If you're using Okta for identity or CrowdStrike for security or Proofpoint or whatever, we can collapse all of those into Microsoft. So now you get a lot more value from one platform. But as we think about the future and AI in our businesses, now we give ourselves the opportunity to allow AI to reason over all that information, because it's all inside a single tenant. Whereas if we're using lots and lots of different products, AI can't possibly reach that data and reason over it. So to answer your question, most of the work we do now is unlocking the full potential of Microsoft 365. And now what's rapidly shifting is Microsoft Copilot. Organizations wanting to get Copilot and not knowing how to extract value from it in a way that they can report up to their board and give them data and say, here's the ROI we're getting based on the way we have deployed it. And here's how we're doing it securely. And here are the agents we're building. And here's why it's a sustainable strategy.
So are
We've
you
gone from mobile devices to all devices to Microsoft 365 and now into the Microsoft Copilot space.
So if I heard you right, are you now kind of the co-pilot mentor? I mean, you're helping companies optimize, leverage that. That's pretty fascinating. Yeah, I mean, because you're right. That is, and you see it all the time. It's like every day there's an article about how people or companies are using AI incorrectly or not to this fullest extent.
To the fullest extent, and also in a way just jumping into it. Like we see this all the time. We did this. Like I'll admit, we did this. So as a Microsoft partner, if we dived into Copilot, we gave it to a lot of people. Mm-hmm. And at one stage, I had a come to Jesus moment with our leadership team because we realized we hadn't actually defined our use cases. We didn't know who we should have given it to. We hadn't really analyzed the way we work to figure out which roles and which types of work would benefit most from AI. We hadn't done the groundwork. We hadn't done our data security work. So when we did the first scan, you won't believe this, but we're a small organization, right? Just under 100 people. We had 33,000 sensitive documents that were overshared, overprivileged, overpermissioned. 33,000 on the first scan.
Wow.
And then we figured out that, we could all use Copilot in the browser. That's easy. But trying to use it well inside Excel or Word or PowerPoint, totally different. You need a different skill set. You need to be able to write prompts in a different way. We didn't know how to do that. And when it came to developing AI agents to do, autonomous work, we didn't know where to start. We really were clueless. And then, when the board asked me, how's the AI initiative going? Are we getting a return on that? I couldn't answer the question. I didn't know whether I should turn it all off tomorrow and say, this is a waste of time, or whether I should say, yes, give it to everybody. It's amazing. I had no data. So we had to go and solve those 5 problems for ourselves, define the use cases, secure the data, train ourselves on how to use this and learn how to do good prompts, build some agents, get the plumbing in place and all the APIs and build those agents, and then build an ROI model so we can actually see what's working and what's not, and who we should pull licenses away from and who we should assign licenses to. So we had to do all that spade work before we could then take it out and actually help customers do something similar for themselves.
Yeah. I got to believe, there's probably 2 types of company. Ones are that are deploying it, not really knowing how to measure ROI, how to do it the way you described. And then there's some that are like, you know what? We don't know this. We don't understand it. We're just not going to do it. We're blocking, no Copilot, no AI. I've heard of other policies that don't put anything in ChatGPT ever on your company work computer. There's the fear factor. If you don't know, it's easier to just ignore it seems.
Yeah. Those companies will have to figure it out.
They're left behind.
Not doing AI is not a sustainable strategy. Just like not doing the internet would not have been a great strategy 25 years ago. Embracing mobile technology or wireless technology would not have been a great strategy. It's a matter of time and figuring these things out and right-sizing it for your own business.
So it sounds like you have a knack, for kind of 20 years ago, leaving Nokia, having this vision, and then running into Microsoft of how you could help businesses going forward. From today, what do you see for 2026 and beyond?
Couple of things. I see, where we started with thinking about mobile device technology, mobile device management, mobile security products. I think that market's going to disappear. I honestly think it's going to collapse. I think Intune is going to be such a dominant product that all the legacy products will almost become irrelevant. We'll probably end up with a small set of use cases that SOTI will still do well for supply chain, inventory management, stuff like that. Watch will carve out a small niche. Jamf will hang around for a while. But I think Intune will just mop up the market. Microsoft will dominate the category in the same way Microsoft dominates so many other categories. There is really
Teams. I remember a time when Teams first came on the market, like nobody was using it. It was glitchy.
Yeah, it was glitchy.
I mean, you see more Teams than anything, it seems like.
And Teams probably isn't even the best example because they have a very strong competitor with Zoom, and Teams is not included in the bundle in some markets. But Intune is included in the bundle in every market. So if you think it's free, as opposed to paying Jamf or AirWatch or Manage Engine or Altiris or whoever else, eventually the CFO is going to say, why are we not using the free one when everyone else is? And so that's the first thing. We think Intune will just eventually be the default product for all endpoint management. And the excitement will go out of that market because it'll essentially be a single product market. Just like Windows is the dominant OS across. Microsoft will just dominate that space. That's not interesting, but I think it's inevitable. What I think is super interesting is the proliferation of security tools that we've seen over the last 10, 15 years. Like we know now, mid-size organizations have on average 52 security tools. 52. Large organizations, really large enterprises, have 70 to 80 security tools. And I believe that's happened because we've been operating with a defensive mindset. We've been under attack from bad actors. And I like to think about it, if you were to find out how many drone launch systems do you think Ukraine has right now? Or how many different missile defense systems have they got right now? I bet you they've got lots because they'll basically buy missile defense from anyone who turns up with a credible product that's willing to sell it to them. And over the last 10 or 15 years, we've been under attack. So we've been trying to protect ourselves and we've ended up with 52 different tools. Now what I'm seeing is a shift in CIO mindset and CISO mindset to say, instead of having 52 point solutions, let's think about consolidating down to a smaller number of strategic platforms that have more integration, more automation, more AI going on. And so I think we're going to see big consolidation in security tooling over the next few years. But when we look out into the future, I think we're going to have exactly the same scenario play out with AI. I'm predicting, and some people will hate me for this, but I'm predicting that large organizations will end up with 52 different AI tools. Not because of fear, because, we armed ourselves with 52 security tools because we were under attack. It was one kind of fear. Now it's a different kind of fear. It's fear of missing out. It's FOMO.
Yeah.
It's organizations, and led from the CEO in many cases, saying, we need to get AI embedded in our business. We need to learn how to work better, faster, cheaper, smarter, et cetera, because our competitors are doing it, because there's opportunities. And I believe organizations will end up with a huge number of AI tools across their business. It'll become a very complex fabric before we get to a point where we can even think about trying to consolidate on a smaller number of strategic platforms.
What's an ideal customer look like for you?
They're a Microsoft shop. So we would be useless if they're an AWS shop or a Google shop. So we're work exclusively in the Microsoft space now. They have a distributed workforce, people in different countries or different offices, different geographies, some working from home, some working in offices. They've got a lot of knowledge workers. They've got a need to be able to work on many different devices throughout the day. They are partway through the journey of embracing AI, and they ideally are in some kind of regulated industry where security is mandatory. So they're subject to some kind of federal mandate to protect citizen data, financial data, student data, patient data. So they have to take security seriously. They know they need to embrace AI. They want to do it with Microsoft. And they don't have all the skills in-house. And they want a partner to come in and work with them, help them deploy the technology with best practice, help them automate all the manual processes, and do lots of knowledge transfer. And the word mentor in our name is there for a very good reason. We still do a lot of knowledge transfer. It's a very large part of how we work, and helping people become the experts on the technology stack they've chosen so they can extract maximum value from. Hopefully that describes the ideal customer.
No, that does. I love healthcare.
Yeah.
Education.
That's 40% of our business.
Yeah,
Education is 30%. You nailed it.
Even governments, state, local, federal.
Oh, yeah. And federal, we manage all the IT and all the mobile devices for some large defense organizations and highly secure government organizations. That's a lot of the work we do in other markets as well.
Gosh, where to go from here? That's a lot of good information, and definitely has the gears turning, because I agree with you. The last 10 years or so focused on mobility and wireless and all these devices. The one thing that almost always comes up, if you mention Copilot, that's complicated. I can't figure it out. Or people asking customers, so what's your MDM strategy? Oh, we use Copilot. Oh, that's great. How's that going? Long pause. Well, actually, John set it up 4 years ago, and he left, 2 years ago, and I don't think anyone's really managing it.
Oh, well, you're right. Up until last week, Intune had 10,000 unique settings. It was a big product. And then with the announcements last week, when Microsoft added 5 new products into Intune, all included in the Microsoft 365 license, I don't know the exact number, but we're getting closer to 20,000 unique settings just on one product. You know how many years it takes to get an engineer to expert level on Intune and be really, really good at just Windows or Mac or iOS or deep in the Android area? It's a beast. Intune is a colossal product.
Wow. Do you have any insight onto what that's going to look like going forward? Will it always require someone like you and an engineering staff to configure it properly and then regularly maintain it?
Yes and no. You will be able to do basic configuration with best practices very easily out of the box, probably have an AI agent to set up some policies to align with your favorite regulatory framework, if you're a CIS, whatever. There will be ways of doing that quickly, easily with smart tech. But that will leave a gap in understanding. And so if you need to do something custom or something breaks, or there's a policy conflict between what you've gotten Entra with your identity or your conditional access policies and the way you've set up your devices, if users are getting locked out or timeouts happening, wrong times and all that, that's where there would be a skills gap. So getting started, easy. Scaling sustainably, bit harder.
Yeah.
I liken it to pickleball, right? I'm a huge pickleball fan. Easy sport to get into and start, and you're just having so much fun very quickly, but a difficult sport to master and really play at a high level. And
you're not careful, you trip and break your ankle or your wrist.
I broke my partner's nose.
I put a muscle in my calf muscle last year. And, because, if you don't warm it up, it gets like everything.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't prepare properly and you don't have the right training, you're going to hurt something, or somebody's going to get hurt. It's the same way with, like if you're not, learning from professionals, caring properly, you're in for a world of hurt.
Yeah. For point, we come across a lot of clients where they say, oh yeah, Jimmy set up Intune 4 years ago and he's gone. And now we're not sure what it's doing or where we're at.
Like, what's the point?
It's not set and forget.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
No.
But that's, I'd feel like there's a slow trend I've noticed just in my limited view of this space of companies that are like, we're going to make Intunes work. I don't want to pay another subscription for, pick one. I already have this. Microsoft is a reputable company, and they clearly know about software. We're just got to figure it out, type thing.
Yeah.
But at that point, unless you have someone on staff that's a specialist in that area, how long are you going to fill around in the dark till you figure it out? Why'd you just go to you guys? Look, on that note, so your team identifies a customer that needs your help. What does that sales cycle look like? I got to believe there must be a lot of due diligence and a lot of information gathering before you can even begin to configure a proper deployment. Is that fair?
That's a great question. Our sales cycle has just got shorter and shorter over the years, which is really convenient.
That's great.
As a business owner. And that's happened for a couple of reasons. We got great advice from a marketing company in Canada about 5 or 6 years ago called Neural Impact. They said, as a small company trying to establish ourselves, the more we share, the more transparent we are, the faster we'll be able to establish trust. So their advice was put your prices on your website, share your customer logos, produce lots of videos, share your IP, write blogs, write white papers, give it all away, and establish trust quickly. So when people come to your website, they get to see, well, this is what you charge, and these are the people you work with, and here's some stuff your engineers have published, and here's a white paper from your architect. And the customer will very quickly self-qualify. And they'll either say, no, you're too expensive, or they'll say, your prices are reasonable. Clearly, you know what you're doing. You've worked with my peers. I recognize the logos on your website. I like the way you described this thing or the way you articulated an approach. I'm going to hire you. Yeah. So that helps enormously to break down barriers and get to trust quickly. The second thing that helps is when Microsoft introduces us and says, Mobile Mentor is our top partner. And they're the guys who do the most complex work and the biggest rollouts. And, for some of the biggest healthcare providers, biggest defense organizations, biggest retailers, that's how they introduce us. And so those customers just go, okay, that's great. Thank you. We don't have to do an RFP. We don't need to spend 3 months scanning the market. We're talking to the people who've done it before many times, and we can get into it. We can immediately drop into a very nuanced conversation about their specific use cases and scenarios. Even if they don't buy from us, they're going to learn.
That's right.
They're going to learn a ton about how to approach it.
You mentioned that marketing firm in Canada. Mm-hmm. Great advice they gave you. I'm just curious, did they mention that you need to come on this podcast by chance? That you should work the wireless way? I mean, I need to get with that marketing firm. Recommending, that should have been the first advice. Hey, call Chris and get on his podcast. That's just been a great conversation, Dennis. I do have one last question that's kind of tongue in cheek, but so there's a rumor that you moved to Nashville because you're going to start if this Mobile Mentor didn't work out, you're going to become a country western singer. Is there any truth to that?
There's no truth. Certainly. I wish there was. But I'll tell you a funny story. When I moved here, we were still doing a lot of app development, mobile app development. And, very quickly realized Nashville is in the buckle of the Bible Belt here in the South. And we were thinking about setting up the app development practice here. And we thought maybe we'll call it John the Aptist. We didn't. We had a good laugh with that. John the Aptist.
Well, is there any last words, anything as we wrap up? Is there anything we didn't hit on that you want to mention, or a favorite quote or a book, and that you can share with us?
My favorite quote is future we see is the future we get. Been my favorite quote for years.
The future we
believe it
is the future.
The future we see is the future we get. I believe it's all in the mind's eye. How we visualize, and like I tell my team, we set that vision. That, what would it look like to become the best in the world? If we just get up every day and think about that for 10 years, what happened? The future we see is the future we get.
Some people call it law of attraction. Some people call it positive thinking. Whatever you call it, it does work. I mean, I can whole life, everything well in my life, other than being a matter of prayer and my belief in God. But, I also have a very positive attitude. I believe if someone else can do it, I can do it. I mean, if you have a position of pessimism, don't be surprised when you're just not successful in life, because you won't be. You have to be. We have to be willing to learn. You have to be open-minded, but you have to be positive. What a great way to end conversation.
And it's not my quote, Chris. I read it somewhere, but I latched onto it, or it latched onto me.
Whoever said it,
was a wise man.
That's
or a wise woman.
Probably from the Stoics or something, like say Marcus Aurelius or saying something like that. This, I really appreciate your time. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've learned a lot. Please check the show notes and I'll have more information there. But thanks again for making time for us.
Thank you, Chris. I'm delighted to be part of your community.
Thank you so much. And thank you for listening to this episode of The Wireless Way. And as always, if any of this resonated, if it hit home, you thought about a customer, you thought about a colleague, share this episode with them. Go to thewirelessway.net. There's a contact us button if you'd like more information. And of course, there'll be information in the show notes and links to Mobile Mentor and learn a little bit more about Denis as well. So we'll see you next time on The Wireless Way. Imagine the power of a single cell phone, just one small device destined for more than just calls. I'm talking about cell phones for soldiers. Your retired phone can be a lifeline for veterans and heroes truly in need. Since 2004, this remarkable nonprofit has transformed over 25 million donated phones into more than 450 million free minutes for service members and veterans, reconnecting them with the voices that mean the most. Your donation is kindness in action, reducing electronic waste and empowering those who served. Each device helps fund urgent communication, calling cards, and programs that rebuild connections, restore hope, and unlock new opportunities for veterans. Check the drawer. Your unused phone could make an extraordinary difference. Simply send it in or drop it off at one of the thousands of locations nationwide and give someone the chance to reach loved ones. Visit cellphonesforsoldiers.com today, because even a single device can spark life-changing connections for veterans all across the country. That's cellphonesforsoldiers.com.